What if the dime in your pocket was worth thousands of dollars? In this episode, we're uncovering the hidden secrets behind three incredible Roosevelt dimes that shocked collectors and broke expectations: the 1988p, the elusive 1983D, and the remarkable 2005D Roosevelt dime. These aren't just coins, they're rare treasures with stories you won't believe. Let's start with the 1983 Roosevelt 1 dime coin. It was 1983, a year when America was shifting. Ronald Reagan was president, MTV was changing the face of entertainment, and Michael Jackson's Thriller had taken the world by storm. The Cold War was still casting its shadow, personal computers were creeping into everyday life, and a sense of transition could be felt in nearly every corner of the country. Amid all this transformation, millions of Americans were going about their daily routines, going to work, raising families, filling cars with gasoline that cost just over $1 a gallon. And in their pockets, unnoticed, was a small silver-colored coin worth 10 cents. A Roosevelt dime. Common. Ubiquitous. Unremarkable, at least, that's what most people thought. But what if that very dime, the 1983 Roosevelt dime, was hiding something? What if it carried more history, more rarity, more hidden value than anyone could have imagined at the time? What if one of those ordinary-looking dimes sitting in a jar, forgotten in a drawer, or passed over at the checkout counter was actually worth tens of thousands of dollars today? The Roosevelt dime had already seen decades of use by 1983. Introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the previous year, the dime quickly became a symbol not only of economic exchange but of a nation's respect for one of its most impactful leaders. Roosevelt had led the United States through the Great Depression and most of World War II. But beyond his political leadership, his legacy was also deeply tied to his fight against polio and his championing of the March of Dimes, a national effort to combat the disease that afflicted him for most of his life. When his image was chosen for the dime, it wasn't just a tribute, it was a mission carried forward in metal. By 1983, the Roosevelt dime had long since shifted from silver to a copper-nickel-clad composition. Precious metals had vanished from everyday coins in the mid-1960s, as the cost of silver skyrocketed, making it impractical to continue minting dimes and quarters with real value baked into them. What remained was a modern alloy designed for mass production and durability. Yet even in this seemingly less valuable form, some coins were destined to become rarities. 1983 was a peculiar year in coinage for another reason. The United States Mint had not produced any official uncirculated mint sets for collectors that year, due to budget constraints. That meant that if someone wanted pristine examples of 1983 coins, they'd have to pull them directly from circulation or discover them through luck and sharp eyes. That scarcity of high-quality examples would go on to haunt collectors for years to come. In the case of the Roosevelt dime, this lack of mint sets meant that truly superb examples of the 1983 issue would become increasingly rare. And then came the errors. Oh, the glorious mint errors that keep collectors awake at night, checking coin rolls and squinting at magnifying glasses. 1983 saw a variety of fascinating mint mistakes. There were double die obverse, where the image of Roosevelt's face or the inscriptions appeared doubled, creating a ghostly, mirrored effect that was a dead giveaway of a special strike. Some coins were struck off-center, leaving Roosevelt's portrait pushed awkwardly to one side, like he was trying to escape the frame. Others were broad-struck without the collar that usually holds a coin shape during minting, resulting in oddly stretched and sometimes warped dimes. These errors transformed everyday coins into collectors' dreams. They weren't just mistakes, they were anomalies, unexpected windows into the minting process, and quirks of U.S. coin production that gave a seemingly boring 10-cent piece a story of its own. And in the world of numismatics, stories are everything. Among the most famous and widely discussed 1983 Roosevelt dime varieties is the Philadelphia minted version that exhibits a rare and strong strike in mint state condition. Finding a 1983p dime in MS67 or higher is exceptionally difficult, thanks to the heavy circulation of these coins and the absence of official collector sets. When these high-grade specimens do appear at auction, they attract attention, serious attention. The sharpness of the design, the brightness of the fields, and the flawless condition of the coin all contribute to sky-high valuations. It's not just about grade, though. It's about rarity, eye appeal, and provenance. A 1983 Roosevelt dime that has survived in nearly perfect condition is a marvel, a survivor of decades of handling, shifting, and spending. It's a time capsule that managed to avoid all the damage, all the wear and tear, and all the careless tossing that befalls most coins. And so, the hunt continues. Collectors scour bankrolls, estate sales, flea markets, and coin shops in search of the elusive 1983 Roosevelt dime in gem condition. Every glint of silver in a handful of change might be a fortune waiting to be discovered. And that's the thrill, the knowledge that a simple coin, no bigger than a thumbnail, might secretly be worth more than a used car, a small gold bar, or even an entire month's salary. One such example, a pristine 1983 Roosevelt dime with impeccable surfaces and full torch bands, crossed the auction block and stunned the collecting world with a final sale of $15,000. That's right, $15,000, for a coin that was once tossed into soda machines and payphones. And that wasn't even the highest price ever paid. Another example, an exceptional 1983 dime with an incredibly rare error and perfect grade, changed hands in a private sale for $77,000. To the average person, it was a 10-cent coin. To a collector, it was the crown jewel of a lifelong search. These coins remind us that sometimes value is hidden in plain sight, that the mundane can become magnificent when viewed through the right lens, that a Roosevelt dime, seemingly identical to every other one, might just carry the twist of fate needed to turn it into treasure. This is the magic of collecting. It's the possibility that keeps people looking, the hope that the next coin examined under a loupe, the next roll searched, the next handful of change received at a gas station could contain something truly special, something that connects history, design, luck, and value in one small, round package. So the next time you see a 1983 dime glimmering under the light, don't dismiss it. Pick it up. Take a closer look. Turn it in your hand and imagine where it's been. Because while most 1983 dimes are worth 10 cents, a precious few are worth a whole lot more, and they're still out there, waiting to be found. In the quiet hum of daily American life during 1988, when cassette tapes filled car stereos and mullets were still spotted proudly in high school yearbooks, change was everywhere, in music, politics, and culture. Yet in your pocket, one thing remained familiar: the Roosevelt dime. Tucked into purses, wallets, and forgotten change jars across the country, the 1988 Roosevelt dime didn't seem like anything special. Just a simple 10-cent piece, unassuming and easy to overlook. But beneath its modest appearance was a story of legacy, precision, and a hidden value that collectors would only discover decades later. The Roosevelt dime had been in circulation for over 4 decades by that time, having first been introduced in 1946 as a tribute to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. A leader who guided the country through the Great Depression and World War II, Roosevelt had also been a vocal advocate for the March of Dimes, a campaign to fight polio. The decision to place his profile on the dime was as symbolic as it was practical. It honored not just a president, but a personal battle against a crippling disease. Fast forward to 1988, and the dime still bore his image, largely unchanged. Yet this year, unknown to many, would become one of the most intriguing for Roosevelt dime collectors. The mint in Philadelphia and Denver produced millions of these dimes, as they did every year. But as with all mass production, not every coin was the same. Some were struck differently, some bore minting errors, and others were preserved in a way that turned them from everyday objects into numismatic treasures. Most people who handled the 1988 dime never gave it a second thought. It bought gum, paid part of the parking meter, or rolled into the depths of a couch cushion. But coin collectors knew to look closer. In the fine details of Roosevelt's hair, the spacing of the letters in Liberty, and the positioning of the mint marks, secrets were hidden. And in some rare cases, those secrets would unlock value far beyond the coin's face. Among the most sought-after varieties of the 1988 Roosevelt dime is the rare, no S, proof dime. Though not confirmed to exist in large numbers for this year, the search for a missing mint mark on proof coins has become almost mythical among collectors, especially given the discovery of similar varieties in earlier years, like 1983 and 1975. The possibility that a 1988 proof dime may have slipped through without its San Francisco's mint mark ignited a passion for discovery. Because if just one such coin exists, its rarity could make it worth thousands, possibly tens of thousands. Other valuable 1988 dimes include those with dramatic minting errors. Double dies, in which the design is accidentally struck twice, are incredibly popular. Off-center strikes that leave part of the design missing, or broad strikes that stretch the coin's shape, are equally eye-catching. Even simple misaligned dies can create quirky, valuable oddities that collectors prize. The most thrilling thing about these errors is that they often appear where no one expects them, inside bank rolls, tucked into old change jars, or hiding in the back of coin shop drawers. But perhaps the most coveted 1988 Roosevelt dimes are those preserved in stunning mint state condition. While millions were made, very few survived the decades without damage, wear, or even tiny nicks. Coins graded MS67 or higher by professional grading services are the elite. Their surfaces are brilliant. Their details are sharp. And when they cross the auction block, they fetch numbers that defy expectations. In 1988, technology at the U.S. Mint was improving, but even then, absolute perfection remained elusive. That's what makes these high-grade dimes so special. They are freaks of fortune, coins that somehow avoided contact, time, and tarnish. They were plucked from circulation early, sealed away, and later discovered by eagle-eyed collectors. One such example, a 1988 Roosevelt dime graded MS68 with full torch bands on the reverse, stunned the collecting world when it sold for more than $15,000 at auction. But that's not where the story ends. A dime bearing a rare die clash, combined with a pristine proof finish and an unknown provenance, once passed quietly from one collector to another before resurfacing in a high-profile private sale. The final price? An eye-watering $128,000. It was a coin that defied logic. A 10-cent piece, common in name. In the rhythm of everyday life, where coins slip through fingers, drop into change jars, and vanish behind couch cushions, most go unnoticed, forgotten. But now and then, something extraordinary hides in plain sight. In the early spring of 2005, Denver's mint facility quietly pressed millions of Roosevelt dimes into existence, their clean copper-nickel faces ready to be spent, saved, or stashed in drawers. No fanfare, no headlines. Yet buried in this vast ocean of coins, a small number of dimes would become the stuff of legend. To understand the value of something as unassuming as a 2005 Roosevelt dime, we have to go back, far back, to the very roots of the coin itself. Long before the pressing of that particular batch in Denver, the Roosevelt dime had already cemented itself as an iconic piece of American currency. First introduced in 1946, this dime was not just another coin, it was a tribute. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the only U.S. president elected to 4 terms, had passed away the previous year. His leadership through the Great Depression and World War II had left a legacy that demanded honoring. But it wasn't only his political impact that earned him a spot on this 10-cent piece, it was personal. Roosevelt had battled polio and spent his later years confined to a wheelchair. His involvement with the March of Dimes, a foundation dedicated to combating the disease, made the connection between the man and the coin more than just symbolic. When the dime was redesigned with his image, it was a gesture filled with meaning, one that transcended economics. By 2005, the coin had undergone several decades of evolution. The silver had long since disappeared, replaced by a clad composition that favored durability over precious metals. What remained was the same familiar face, the torch of liberty, and the quiet dignity of a man who had faced enormous adversity with unwavering strength. But that year, among the masses of ordinary dimes, a handful emerged with stories far richer than their surface suggested. The Denver Mint, known for its efficient, high-volume production, had been issuing coins for well over a century. Its D. Mint mark became a subtle stamp of identity on countless coins, and yet, Even in such precision-driven environments, imperfections slip through. These imperfections, mint errors, were the golden tickets for collectors. In 2005, Roosevelt Dimes struck at the Denver Mint began to appear with mysterious anomalies, double die obverse, off-center strikes, broad-struck edges, and strange die clashes that gave each flawed coin a unique personality. Imagine holding a dime where the letters seem to dance, their outlines doubled as if echoing across the surface. Or a coin where Roosevelt's face shifts, pushed to one side, as if struggling to escape the boundaries of the coin's frame. These weren't design choices. They were born of pressure, speed, and the mechanical ballet of die strikes gone slightly awry. They were mistakes, but to collectors, they were masterpieces. It was during this era that coin roll hunters, those tireless individuals who sift through box after box of circulated currency, began reporting on finds. Dimes that bore unexpected textures, coins with missing elements, rotated dies, and unusual luster. And though millions of 2005 Roosevelt dimes had been struck, very few appeared in perfect condition. Fewer still bore mint errors. And those rare few that combined a pristine strike with a visible minting anomaly, they became the holy grail. The story of these dimes spread through coin clubs, online forums, and auction houses. A coin that originally bought a piece of gum or sat forgotten in a glove box was now drawing 4 and 5 figures in bidding wars. Collectors who had dismissed the Roosevelt dime as too modern, too common, began to take a second look. The whispers grew louder. Not all 2005 dimes are created equal. What made these coins even more desirable was their scarcity in high grades. Because the mint did not produce special proof versions of the 2005 dime for collectors in the same way it had done in other years, obtaining one in mint state 68 or higher became an increasingly difficult challenge. Most dimes entered circulation quickly, clinking into cash registers, bus fare boxes, and tip jars. Very few were pulled aside and protected. Fewer still survived the years without scratches, nicks, or fading. One collector, a quiet enthusiast from Kansas who had been searching coins for decades, stumbled upon a 2005 Roosevelt dime that looked different. It shimmered under the light. No abrasions. Full bands on the torch. A sharp strike. And more astonishing, an off-center strike with partial color. When the coin was graded, it received a near-flawless mint state rating. At auction, it fetched $7,000. Another coin, preserved from the day it was minted, showed a full double die reverse with razor-sharp features. No one could believe it when the gavel struck at a final price of $59,000. A 10-cent coin, one that most would overlook or even discard, had become a prized artifact. These coins serve as a reminder that value often lies beneath the surface. That even in our most routine interactions, paying for coffee, getting change at the store, we might be holding a piece of history. A hidden treasure. A numismatic miracle. The 2005 Roosevelt dime is more than just a coin. For the right collector, it's a legacy, a discovery, a tangible slice of American history made all the more valuable because so few recognized its worth at the time. And so the search continues. In gas stations, in bank rolls, in old forgotten drawers, the rare 2005 Roosevelt dimes lie waiting. Each one carrying not just the face of a president, but the echo of a story that spans generations. Because sometimes, what's worth a fortune doesn't look like it at first glance. It jingles quietly in your pocket, waiting for someone to notice.